Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode If You Could Hide to Kolob podcast. My name's Daniel. This is my brother Clive.
Hello, everybody. This is a lot, Daniel. This is, 9 chapters, and there's a lot of stories to it. And I guess the whole point of this podcast is not only because we love to talk about doctrine, but it's also to help people study their come follow me. And I just hope we do a justice of trying to get out everything that was in the scriptures so that it's not so overwhelming this coming week.
You've got the quote, so why don't you kick us off with that, and then let's get into it. We will be starting at Genesis chapter 24.
Okay. All right. So my quote is from Brigham Young Journal of Discourses. And one thing that I served my mission in California. There's a lot of born-again Christians there. There's a lot of other faiths too, but I feel like born-agains are really the ones that went and invited us in and went, this is why you're wrong. And so...
And California is a huge area, Clive. You were in Roseville,
California, north side. Shout out to everyone over there.
And is that north of like Sacramento?
It is. So Sacramento is pretty much the border. So if anyone knows California, all of the stuff you see on TV is all south of Sacramento. Anything north is like forest, bushland. It's still very American, but not what you see on TV.
Was that part of your quote, American geography?
It was not. It was not. Hopefully it all works out. So to be born again is a very, very important aspect of the church. We need to accept Jesus Christ into our life and then be baptized and then faith and the Holy Ghost and everything else that leads up. So to accept Christ to our life is very, very important, but it requires work. You can't just accept Christ into your life and you're saved. So Brigham Young put it well when he said, I have faith in my God, and that faith corresponds with the works I produce. I have no confidence in faith without works. And Christ showed that all through his life. He came down. He was perfect. He could have just gone, I'm perfect. Atonement, done, boom. But he didn't. Through his whole life, he showed the works. Joseph Smith showed the works. Anyone, really, you look back through the history of the church, and it's all about working hard to serve your Lord, serve your fellow man.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to start off with chapter 24 of Genesis. Fun fact, this is the longest chapter in Genesis. There's a lot to get through here. We've got Abraham. We'll be soon introduced to Rebekah as well. And I might just start us off because instantly this chapter, Clive, it sets a scene, right? So we immediately get into a scene. And so it starts off, and Abraham was old and well stricken in age, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. And in 2, and Abraham said unto his eldest servant of his house that ruled over all that he had, put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh. The Joseph Smith translation is hand, so hand under my hand. So kind of what I'm imagining, I'm setting the scene, Clive, I'm thinking about it, and I'm imagining Abraham is sitting there in contemplation. He has a beautiful wife. He has a fantastic family. He has riches. He has servants. He's achieved so much for the Lord. He's achieved so much personally, so much professionally. And he summons his highest servant. So think about the person who he trusts outside of his immediate family, the person he trusts the most. The person he trusts the most with his riches, the person he trusts the most with the rest of his servants, the rest of his items, his flocks, his fields, his land. And he calls that person that he trusts the most, and he enters into this intimate situation. So they kind of clasp hands, and he says, I will make thee swear by the Lord, the God of heaven, and the God of the earth, that thou shalt not take a wife unto my son of the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I dwell. So he says to his servant, Isaac is not married. Make sure when I die that he does not marry a Canaanite. The Canaanites are not good people. The scriptures tell us in Deuteronomy and in other places, we learn that they were big on prostitution. They were not good in the gospel settings. And this is Abraham knows this intimately because he says, this is where I am. These are the people. They cannot marry these people.
And I guess more importantly to the point is they have been cursed not to have the priesthood. And so if Abraham is the father of a nation, well, this nation needs to continue his lineage, his priesthood, his power. So we'll later on learn that Esau did marry a Canaanite, and so the priesthood line stopped at him. And so it's important to note that you can't marry a Canaanite because I need to be a father of nations. That's the promise the Lord's given me. And that means that the priesthood will continue on my line. And so it's very, very important. It's not just simply, I mean, like you put, it's obviously very, very important that he marries someone good and someone worthy. But again, the priesthood is what's most important.
It's awesome. I just love this story. So number 4, but thou shalt go unto my country, to my kindred, and take a wife unto my son Isaac. So he gets his most trusted person. So if you're listening to this podcast, think about the most trusted person that you have in your life, and you are trying to enlist them to do something of the most highest importance for you in your personal life. He needs Isaac to be married. Like you said, there's a progression, a priesthood progression. There's a covenant path progression that Isaac needs to be a part of. And so he enlists this servant. And then in 5 and in 6, and the servant said unto him, peradventure the woman will not be willing to follow me unto this land. Must I needs bring thy son again unto the land from whence thou comest? And Abraham said unto him, beware that thou bring not my son thither again. Beware that thou bring not my son thither again. So he says, you're not going to take my son there. You're going to go on this mission by yourself, and you're going to need to bring her back out. So the servant's going, are you sure we're going to be able to bring her all this way? She's not going to follow me. She's not going to be willing. I'm going to go to this faraway place, and I'm going to say, hey, there's a guy that I need you to marry. You don't know him. Can you jump on this camel? Let's go.
Yeah, I promise he's awesome. I promise. I'm just a stranger. You don't know me. You don't know him, but he's great.
Yeah. I promise he does exist. Wink, wink. I promise when we get across this land, it's going to be fine. So this servant's like, Abraham, you're kidding. There's just no way. So I love this idea, Clive, that there is so much trust from Abraham. And I'm really trying to think about Abraham and put myself as a spectator in this live situation that's happening. Like Abraham is so spiritual. He's been through so much. And he's saying to this servant, dude, go do this. It sounds like you're kidding me. But Abraham is so spiritual. He's all knowing. He knows that this is the right thing that needs to be done.
And I thought what was interesting about it is Abraham doesn't say to his servant, this is how you will find her. The servant goes out himself and prays to the Lord. And so it's the trust that Abraham has, isn't it? He says, go out, pray to the Lord that you'll find them. And he prays to the Lord and he says to the Lord, hey, this is the way that I want to find someone. If this, the situation which we can talk about.
Yeah, exactly. So he gets, so the servant grabs the camels and then he heads down and the servant says a prayer. We're now down in verse 12. And there's a couple of bits of this language, Clive, that I really like. And he said, this is the servant, O Lord God of my master Abraham, I pray thee. This guy is talking like he's not actually a member of the faith that Abraham is in. Because he's saying, Lord God of my master. He's not saying, oh my Lord, oh my God, help me in this journey. He's saying, okay, Abraham, I'm going to pray to your God and I'm going to put my trust in you, Abraham. So I'll call on your God and I need to get your God to help me. So I really like that this servant is trust. The trust between Abraham and his servant is so strong that he is taking on this task. So again, just these small details in the text just make it really, really interesting. So he says, so if we finish in 12, if we go to 13, behold, I stand here by the well of water, and the daughters of men of the city will come out to draw water. And it shall come, and let it come to pass that the damsel to whom I shall say, let down thy pitcher, I pray thee, that I might drink. And she shall say, drink, and I will give thy camels drink also. Let the same be she that thou hast appointed for thy servant Isaac, and thereby shall I know that thou hast showed kindness unto my master. So he says, in his prayer, he says, if I see this situation happening, I will know that this is the person for my master's son Isaac. So if I go there and there's a damsel at the well, if she says, okay, not only will I look after you, but I'll also help the camels, then he will go, bang, this is the one. And so the servant is setting up this scene so that he makes sure that he does the right thing by Abraham and therefore does the right thing by the Lord, and as a product does the right thing by Isaac.
And what's great is, something good is about to happen, because it says before they even finished praying, Rebekah came. So that, like, he's not waiting around all day, umming and ahhing about, is this right? Is this the way the Lord wants it? It says in 15, it came to pass, before he had done speaking that, behold, Rebekah came out, who was born of Bethel and son of Milcah and all that sort of stuff, which we can talk about the family history if you like, how they're related. But basically, she came out, and it went as he prayed. Everything that he said in his prayer, that's the way it went. And it's funny because when he recounts the story, he recounts it exactly the same again. So he talks about how we should go when he prays. Then he says in here that how it actually went. Then he goes and reports back to Laban about what happened, and he explains it all again. So he's just really excited about, well, I prayed about it, and this is actually what came about. So It's just really funny the way he lays it all out there.
So, Clive, he sees Rebekah, and in 16, the damsel was very fair to look upon, a virgin, neither had any man known her. And she went down to the well and filled her pitcher and came up. And then in 17, and the servant ran to meet her and said, let me, I pray thee, drink a little water of thy pitcher. So he sees her, and you're right, he opens up his eyes, or however he prays, and he sees her straight away, and he just walks straight over to her and puts this prayer to the immediate test. And she said, drink, my lord. And she hastened and let down her pitcher upon her hand and gave him a drink. So she doesn't go, I'm not sure. I just, she's getting water out of a well. Like it's a distance down. She's got to scoop it out. There's an effort required here to get this water. And she immediately says, no problem. I just got it. You can have it. So it's really, really special. And then in verse 19 and 20, this is the clinch. This is the clinch to show the type of person that Rebekah is. And when she had done giving him drink, so by this stage, the servant his thirst has been quenched, and he's all good now. And she notices that. She said, I will draw water for thy camels also until they have done drinking. And she hastened and emptied her pitcher into the trough and ran again unto the well to draw water, and drew for all his camels. And the man wondered at her, held his peace to wit whether the Lord had made his journey prosperous or not. Now, if we go back, Clive, in verse 10, it says, and the servant took 10 camels. So he arrives with 10 camels. Rebekah is at a well. She gets enough water, and the servant he's no longer thirsty. His thirst has been quenched. She then sees a trough, goes to the well, fills up the trough with a bucket. Let's say it's, a few gallons. If you're in America, it might be a 2 or 3 liter, maybe 5 liter at maximum bucket. Wouldn't be any bigger than that. You would be struggling to get it up and down a well. And then she tips it in the trough. 10 camels. Like, I don't know what the humps are for camels, but I'm guessing they drink a lot of water, and I'm guessing they're pretty thirsty, and there's 10 of them. There's a lot of area to fill. And so she is running, she is hastening to make sure these camels drink, all 10 of them. They must drink, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 liters each. And she does this work for all 10 of them.
Yeah, and she's gone down to the well for a reason. But whatever reason it is, she hasn't even started her part yet. She's gone, this guy's asking for water. I'm going to give him water. His camels are thirsty. I'm going to give to the camels. She hasn't even thought, well, let me just get a bit for me, or I need to organize myself first. And this is the type of person that he's looking for, obviously, someone who's so selfless, that's willing to do these things for a complete stranger and for the complete stranger's animals before she even finished what she's there for. She may be there for herself or to gather water for her family, but there's no mention that here, because to her, it's like, well, let me take care of this person first. So this is the criteria that he's after, because this is the selflessness type of person that Isaac should marry, because this is Abraham's the father of nations. He's only had one kid, or one kid that's going to carry the birthright. And so this needs to be someone special. And so it just shows there really how special Rebekah is in willingness to be able to not think of herself and to think about those that are in need.
Yeah, that's a really good point you mentioned there about what her reasons for being there, because she's put them massively on the back burner. Because it says in 15 that before he had done speaking, behold, Rebekah came out. So Rebekah had just arrived at the well at that time that the servant had arrived. He'd prayed. So he arrives at the well with 10 camels and there's no one there. He prays and prays and prays, opens his eyes after prayer, or however he prays, and then Rebekah comes. So you're right, she is yet to complete her own task, and her own task is put on the back burner to help, to be of service to the servant. It's a really, really deep story. It's a very special story about the highlighting the personality that Rebekah has, because she would go on, obviously, to be with Isaac, and they have such a prosperous life. The right person is required for this matriarchal role that she would fulfill as Isaac becomes the patriarch of these 3,000 years.
So just going on here, so I think there's a few interesting points to note here. So the servant speaks to Rebekah and praises her, and he's like, well, this is it. It says in 23, he said, whose daughter art thou? Tell me, I pray thee. Is there room in thy father's house for us to lodge in? So, after you've given us all the camels, I want to lodge with you. She said,
and he wants to know, Clive, who's her family, who did such a job to raise such a person, and we need to meet them. We need to understand. If you know someone, like particularly if you go and visit another ward, you see a young man or a young woman. A young man might be passing the sacrament. Oh, who are you? Who's your family? And you make that link, that distinct link between them and the characters, the bits of character that they have.
Yeah, exactly. And this is Abraham's original land. Maybe he's also concerned they might be too related. So he's just checking. But she says, yeah, well, you can come to my home. She explains who she is. And in 25, we have both straw and provender.
Provender?
Enough and room to lodge in. So, yes, of course, you can come live with me, and we have stuff for you. We got straws, we got everything else that you need to be able to lodge with us. Yeah. So again, now the servant's like, well, this is great. It says, and the man bowed down his head and worshipped the Lord, and he said, blessed be the Lord God of my master Abraham, who hath not left destitute my master of his mercy and his truth. I, being in the way, the Lord led me to the house of my master's brethren. So obviously, at this time he's gone, this is exactly it. And he's just fell down and praised the Lord. Yeah, I know. Rebekah might be like, what the heck's going on? Explain yourself. But, he's just like, this is it. Like, Abraham's promised me this will happen. I've come here, asked the Lord, and boom, it's happened straight away. Like, how much of a miracle is this? Anyone could have come, but Rebekah came.
I think this is a lesson in terms of this act, whether you've mentioned in verse 26 and 27, where the servant prays. How often in our lives do we actually have a miracle come forward or a prayer answered? And then how often on the flip side, then do we recognize that that is an answer? And then we actually then give the thanks for that answer. Or or sometimes maybe we prayed for something, it happens, and then we just go, oh, awesome, and then move on. The servant here has recognized that he needs to close this loop. He's started off with a prayer. He has been heard in a massive way, and then he closes it off with thanks. So it's this complete circle, which I think is another lesson in itself baked into this chapter.
Yeah, you're right. How many times do we do that? I was thinking when you were asking, when the Lord provides a miracle, do we go, excellent, the Lord provides a miracle. I asked for it and he gave it to me. No, I don't remember going down on my knees going, thank you, Lord, for providing it. I'm sure people do. And people are listening going, I can't believe you don't do that.
That's it. You're fired. We're all fired. Burn this thing down.
Exactly. And so now it says in 28, and the damsel ran and told them of her mother's house these things. So she's obviously excited. She obviously must feel the Spirit or more of an understanding of what's going on. So she's ran home.
Yeah.
I mean, she's running a lot in there. She's running back and forth. She's running home. Just a super fit person. But then here's the interesting stuff, right? So, and Rebekah had a brother, his name was Laban, and Laban ran out unto the man unto the well. So Laban comes running out. He heard what's going on. He's run out to the well. And it came to pass when he saw the earring and bracelets upon his sister's hand, and when he heard the words of Rebekah his sister, saying, Thus spake the man unto me, that he came unto the man, and behold, he stood by the camels at the well, and he said, Come in, thou blessed of the Lord. Wherefore standest thou without? For I have prepared a house and room for the camels. So, obviously Laban, being the older brother, although, I mean, this is the Old Testament, so brother might not necessarily mean brother, but I think in the 3,000 years it does say that it probably is a brother. But he's come out and, he's gone, obviously come to our house. But I think it's interesting that it specifically points out that he does see the earrings and the bracelets, and maybe he thinks, well, this might be worth my while. It's not just as simple of, the Lord's come and blessed us, but
you think it might be untoward?
I think I don't think it would specifically mention it if he didn't, it didn't cross his mind that this could be worth something. Because he goes in, he takes her inside, they have this discussion, and then she leaves with the man straight away. So, it's very much, let's get this thing going. More than just, well, let's think about it. This is my sister. She hasn't known no man and all that sort of stuff.
Okay. So the brother, he does sit down with Abraham and he says, tell me the story. Tell me the story. What's going on? And then from verse 34 all the way to verse 44, the story is being recounted. So this is what you mentioned a few minutes ago, that there's excitement. There's so much going on. This chapter can be split up so easily. Verse 15 down to verse 28 is Rebekah, is the Rebekah and the servant scene. 29 to 33 is the brother. 34 to 44, Abraham is recounting the story. So these things are all, Abraham's servant is recounting the story. So you're right. There's an occurrence of something, then there's a retelling and a retelling. Just goes to show how big of a story that this is. So, Clive, if we go down to verse 51, Rebekah, behold, Rebekah is before thee. Take her and go and let her be thy master's son's wife, as the Lord hath spoken. And it came to pass that when Abraham's servant heard their words, he worshipped the Lord, bowing himself to the earth. He again recognizes that the miracle has occurred and that a prayer has been answered. So he gives things. The servant brought forth jewels of silver, gold, raiment, he gave them to Rebekah. He gave also to her brother and to the mother precious things. And in 54, they have a party, and they did eat and drink, he and the men that were with him, and tarried all night. And they rose up in the morning, and he said, Send me away unto thy master. So there's a big party in 54. a marriage has been agreed to, a blessing has been given that the daughter can leave. And so there's a celebration that this is going to happen. In particular, that um, there is a prosperous marriage as well. It's not just some servants or some mediocre people being married. This is a significant lineage, possibly royal lineage, from what we understand about Abraham and Sarah. So this is a very, very big deal. And if we get down to 60, and they blessed Rebekah and said unto her, Thou art our sister, be thou the mother of thousands of millions, and let thy seed possess the gate of those which hate them. So there is a recognition here of Rebekah's mission.
Okay. All right. So should we jump into 25 then? Just talk about that one. That was such a long chapter and a lot of information in there.
Yeah. The only other thing special that I wanted to, I know I've rambled a lot about this chapter, but there's so much great stuff in it. In 67, something else significant happens. So Rebekah and Isaac meet. And in 66, the servant told Isaac all things that he had done. So the servant recounts the miracles surrounding Rebekah being found. And then Isaac does something special. Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent and took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. And Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. I felt that there was a really special recording. So Isaac is obviously so close to his mum Sarah, and so to pass on from one matriarch to another, there's almost a ceremony, almost a something that has happened where Isaac has gone, we in particular need to go into my mother's tent, and we almost need to do a passing the baton on from one matriarch to the other. So I think there's more to that than I understand, but specifically for this to be in here, that there is a process that Isaac follows, goes into the mum's tent, they get married, and he is then, the last line is that he was comforted after his mother's death. There's something more to that, and I think it might be quite special.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about 25 quite quickly. So Abraham gets remarried, and he has children. He has more children.
Bunch of them.
But it specifically says in verse 5, and Abraham gave all that he had unto Isaac. Isaac is the one that promised there will be a father of nation. Well, he will continue on the line of Abraham, as we know, that he has Jacob and all those other sons. So, this is the lineage. And so, yes, he gets remarried. Yes, he has all those children. Isaac's the one, the birthright, the one that goes and it follows. And it sort of just talks a little bit about the other children of Abraham and other things of Abraham. I think I want to get into verse 19 where it starts the next bit.
Yeah.
It's got that little backwards P thing. So these are generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begat Isaac. Right now, this is continuing on from Isaac's line.
Yeah.
And Isaac was 40 years old, and he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel and Syrian, and sister of Laban and Syria. Anyway, Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. So there's a bit there from that. So first of all, she was barren. Now this is it follows very much along the lines of Abraham, where Sarah was barren and the Lord blessed them, and obviously she had Isaac. And it's really interesting because as we go on through the story, a lot of things will line up similar to what's happened to Abraham. So she's barren. Isaac goes and Isaac prays to the Lord, and the Lord blesses her that she does then conceive. And so it's a really small verse, but it's actually two quite big important parts to it.
Well, I do actually have more information of that, and it comes from the book of Jasher, Clive, chapter 26. And I've really inserted this in my scriptures in between verse 20 and 21, because verse 20, 21 must span a significant amount of time. Those two verses must span a significant amount of time. The book of Jasher records this. This is Rebekah talking. Now, therefore, stand up, pray also to God, and he will hear your prayers, and remember us through his mercies. And Isaac answered his wife Rebekah, saying, Abraham has already prayed for me to God to multiply his seed. Now, therefore, this barrenness must proceed to us from you. So Rebekah says, pray to the Lord. And Isaac said, my dad already prayed to the Lord. You're barren. This is your issue. And Rebekah said to him, but arise now, you also, and pray that the Lord might hear your prayer and grant me children. And Isaac listened to the words of his wife, and Isaac and his wife rose up and went to the land of Moriah to pray there and to seek the Lord. And when they had reached that place, Isaac stood up and prayed to the Lord on account of his wife because she was barren. And Isaac said, O Lord God of the heavens and earth, whose goodness and mercies fill the earth, you who took my father from his father's house and from his birthplace and brought him to this land, and said to him, to your seed I will give land, and you promised and declared to him, and I will multiply. It goes on and on and on. For you're the Lord, our God. Our eyes are towards you. Give us seed, as you promised, Isaac says. You are the Lord our God. Our eyes are directed to you alone. So I love this story, Clive, this extra kind of detail, because Rebekah, I really feel like Rebekah is so chosen. She's so spiritual. She is right up there with the top. She's right up there at the top of the tree. She's saying to Isaac, dude, figure this out. Go to the Lord. Like, so her testimony must be so strong. And then we get into Genesis and we get Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren. So it kind of, so the book of Jasher is saying it was actually Rebekah who first said, go to the Lord. And there's this engagement here where Isaac says, but Abraham already prayed. I don't need to go to the Lord. This is you. You're the barren one. And Rebekah says, no, again, go to the Lord. So I love this idea again of just elevating Rebekah so much.
Yeah, I think you're right. In 23, it talks about the importance of Rebekah and the important role she'll play. But I will just mention real quick, you said there was must have been a big time in between. They're married for 19 years before
yes,
she
true.
can then have children. So because they're married for 19 years, obviously, they've probably been trying for a while for then Rebekah to go, go inquire of the Lord because this is something important. So she does get pregnant, but she gets quite ill. She doesn't get quite ill. Not only does she get quite ill, but she feels like there's fighting within inside her. And so she goes and she prays to the Lord. So a lot of the times when this happens, you go, she'll turn to her husband or whatever and go, pray to the Lord, tell him what's wrong. But she prays to the Lord. And I think this is, again, what you were saying. This is a testimony to the type of person she is because the Lord speaks to her. So it says, and she went to inquire of the Lord. That's 22, 23. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. Now, that's a very, very important thing that she'll remember through the rest of their lives, that the Lord said to them that the elder shall serve the younger. And I don't know if she didn't share this information with Isaac, or if Isaac didn't fully understand what it meant. But as we go on to explain this story, it's a very significant, important part. So the 2 nations that they're speaking of here, there's Jacob, who was the father of, all of those children, which we'll talk about. He changed his name to Israel and all of that, but we'll get into that in a minute. And there's Esau. And Esau goes off and he has a lot of children with multiple wives, and so does Jacob, I suppose. Basically, it goes on to talk about, it fast forward again quite quickly and into the birth of them.
Yeah.
And the first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And after that, his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bore them. And the boys grew up. So again, a fast forward a bit here. And Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man dwelling in tents. Now, there's a lot of information of who these men are. It's not just, to explain that Jacob was a plain man, it doesn't really do it justice here. But dwelling in tents, I think that matches up quite well with how Nephi felt it was so important to explain that his father dwelt in a tent. When he was talking about the majesty of Lehi, and he says, and my father dwelt in a tent. I think it's an important part of who you are. So Esau was a man. He was a hunter. He was like a man's man. He was a hunter. He'd cook up these delicious meals with the things that he'd hunt, and his father absolutely loved him for it. Jacob was just like this plain herdsman. He was a cultivator of the land. He wasn't a rough and tough and go out and hunt, but it was a different type of importance of his job, and he was more favored with Rebekah because of that.
Clive, in the book of Joshua, it gives us a little bit of detail and expands a little bit on the points that you're making. And the boys grew up to their 15th year, and they came among the society of men. Esau was a scheming and deceitful man, and an expert hunter in the field. Jacob was a perfect and wise man, dwelling in tents, feeding flocks, and learning the instructions of the Lord and the commands of his father and mother. And it goes on to the various points that you were making here. But you're right. The history tells us these two people had, that yes, they were twins, but they almost couldn't be any more opposite. A hunter, bit deceitful, a man of the Lord, who's farming, feeding flocks. Their interests couldn't be more opposite if they tried.
Yeah, it is interesting that these are men that have been promised, and they, like I said, they're very quite different. And they don't really, I mean, they come to love each other in the end, but they do split off and go completely different ways through their life. So it is really fascinating that these are the men that was given to Isaac and Rebekah. I don't know if we're really going to have time to go through 26, but I will just mention, if we do, I'll just keep talking till you stop me, basically. But there's a famine. There's a famine in the land.
Kidding.
There's a famine in the land, and so Isaac decides to take his family and move to Egypt.
Yeah.
And, the Lord tells him that you can't really stay here. And so he moves back. And you got to remember that the land that they're surrounded by is Canaan. So it's not really a great place, even though Canaan used to be blessed. We talked about it a few weeks ago. Canaan was a great place, but now it's turned wicked. So they end up living about 30 miles southwest of Hebron, which is still his landish sort of area. And now this is where, again, another story matches so well with what happened to Abraham. So we remember the story of Abraham and Sarah, and they go, and Sarah was beautiful, and so Abraham worried something was going to happen. He said, well, this is my sister, not my wife. And the same story really goes along with this. There's a king, Abimelech, and he calls Isaac, and he says, who's this? And he says, well, this is my sister. Again, sort of the same idea of, out of fear, what's going to happen to him if he says, this is my wife, because she's so fair to look upon. What's interesting about this story is the king sees Isaac sporting with Rebekah, and he goes, well, that's not really something siblings do. And he calls him into his house, and he says, this can't be your sister. That's all you're sporting. This must be your wife. And so Isaac goes, yeah, it's true. She's my wife.
Psych.
Yeah. But then, because Isaac and Rebekah are there, they actually start to get quite wealthy there. And a lot of people in the area begin to get quite jealous. And Josephus explains that because Isaac's become so wealthy, everyone's envied him and they don't really want him to continue as well as he's doing. Now, Abraham and his men, a while ago, they dug all these wells. But the Philistines go in and they cover all these wells because they don't want Isaac to have all of these things. So they go and they cover it. And there's an interesting story about the wells, which I can probably talk about in the next part because it really goes along quite well with another chapter. But once you've dug this well, you get a legal claim to this land, but they don't want him to have more land because he's got all these riches. So by reopening Abraham's old wells, Isaac was able to reclaim more of his father's land. So they covered his wells quite a bit. Actually, I might read this. It says, all the wells in which Isaac's father's servants had digged in the days of Abraham his father, the Philistines had stomped them and filled them with earth. Springs and streams are scarce in the hot, dry climate of the ancient Middle East. Shepherds had to dig wells to provide water for their flocks and herds. The wells that Abraham had dug for his animals years before in the unoccupied territory of southern Canaan had given him and his heirs the right to graze their flocks in the region. But after Abraham died, the Philistines had filled these wells with dirt, denying Isaac the right as Abraham's heir to continue up with these pastured lands. Isaac and the Philistines eventually reached a compromise that allowed him to access to the grazing lands around the productive wells that he named Sheba, or productive well. The ancient city of Beersheba, well of Sheba, took its name from this well, which is there now. So, yeah, really fascinating that something so small, something that seems so insignificant, is actually quite important, and that's quite heavy in the middle here, talking about these wells. But I thought I would just go over it quickly instead of reading about the wells.
No, really, really interesting. It's a very interesting week in Come Follow Me. Really, really interesting. Well, that's all we got time for. Let's come back for a part 2 if we have time, Clive. There is a bit to get through. So thanks for tuning in to another episode of You Could Hide to Cola podcast. Catch us on Facebook, Instagram, catch us on YouTube, subscribe to us there, and we will see you for our next episode. Talk to you soon.